Good afternoon and welcome to Solent Sports News with me, Lawrence McJanet. In today's programme, sacked, Mark Hughes' time at St Mary's is up after just 8 months. Southampton say his replacement will be announced before the end of the week. Top of the league, Solent's hockey team are on a roll but now face a long winter break. And the road to recovery, Sam's story on how she ran her way from bulimia. Good evening. Well, the big news of the day comes from St Mary's. Southampton announced this morning they've sacked manager Mark Hughes after 8 months in charge. All of this despite a 2-2 draw with Manchester United at the weekend. Our reporter Jack Atkins has been at St Mary's since the news broke this morning. Jack, what's the latest?
As we know, Mark Hughes has been relieved of his duties here at Southampton, with the club sitting 18th in the Premier League. This comes after the Saints threw away a 2-0 lead to draw 2-2 at the hands of Man United on Saturday. Here's what the Southampton fans thought of the news.
Well, so basically the last results haven't been really good. They started really weak this season, so given the last results, I think it's just a good practice for Southampton just to try to find some new fresh air and see what happens in the next few weeks.
I'm not surprised, to be honest. I think he was on a sticky wicket. Really, he hasn't got the team playing very well, and although they did seem to do quite well against Man U at the weekend and got a point, you know, I think his time was up.
It seemed a long time coming. Southampton haven't been playing well. They've been letting leads slip like they did against Man United. And they just seem, whenever they're trying to see out a game, they just panic. And it comes down to a point where it stops being the players' fault and the manager needs to take some blame. And he spent a lot of time just blaming the refs. He never took any of it on his own shoulders.
So, Jack, who's taking charge of the Saints for the game on Wednesday at Spurs?
So first team coach Calvin Davis would now take charge of the team ahead of Wednesday's game. The former Saints goalkeeper spoke to journalists earlier today in his first press conference.
I think the opportunity I've got now is to take the lads for a couple of days of training and prepare them for the Tottenham game. After that. I'm fully focused on trying to get a positive performance on Wednesday.
And who's likely to be the permanent replacement at St Mary's?
So bookmakers mark RB Leipzig's manager Ralph Hasenhüttl as their favourite, as he is almost at evens. However, several experienced Premier League managers have also been thrown into the mix.
Our reporter Jack Atkins at St Mary's there. Thanks, Jack, for joining us. Joining me in the studio now is Graham Hiley, Southampton's former press officer. Graham, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
I wondered if you could tell us if you think this is the right decision that they've made.
I think it probably was inevitable. It's a sad situation because I think there was a lot of hope at the end of last season. I think Mark Hughes came in and did a really good job to keep the team up when possibly they didn't deserve it. I think the question needed to be asked over the summer whether he was the right man to take the club forward. And I think they've also got to look at what's gone on behind the scenes in terms of recruitment as well. So I think he probably is the right decision in the sense that if they hadn't have changed things, I think they probably would go down. So sadly, probably the right decision.
Right. And do you think it's a decision they may have taken before the Man United game?
Probably. Maybe they were a little bit worried when Saints went 2-0 up, but have proved time and again this season that we can't hold on to a lead. And I think as well that they were keen to learn the lessons from last season when they sacked Pellegrino far too late, and I think that was probably playing on their minds as well, and they don't want to get into the same situation as they had last season when it went right down to the wire and was very much too close for comfort.
Right. And in terms of names being bandied about, are there any that spring to mind you think might be a good fit for Southampton?
Well, the name that's being bandied around at the moment is the former Leipzig manager, Ralf Hasenhüttl, if I've said it correctly. And by all accounts, he would be a good fit. I think another key one that is also being bandied around is that Paul Mitchell could be returning as the head of recruitment or as a director of football. And I think that would be a big signing, because when he left and went to Tottenham, I think we really missed him, and I think our recruitment hasn't been as good since he left.
Right, and knowing the club as you do, what do you think the fans are looking for in a new manager?
A win, just a win at the moment. It's been so flat at the moment, and has been really for the last 2 seasons, ever since Claude Puel took us to the League Cup final, and everybody snorted the club for getting rid of him, but the football was awful. I think partly again down to recruitment and just a lack of atmosphere, a lack of belief. Pellegrino came in, wasn't the right man for the job, and again the atmosphere was flat. Mark Hughes came in and there was a bit of excitement and we stayed up, but again this season it's just flat. The fans are waiting for the team to give them something to cheer, but the team need the fans to get behind them, and it's just a bit depressing really. I go down, I sit there and I come home again.
Right. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Graham Hiley. We'll see what the future holds for a new manager at Southampton. Staying with football now, and England have learnt their fate in the UEFA Nations League finals. 25 years on from the controversial game that saw the Netherlands deny the Three Lions World Cup qualification, England can finally get their revenge over Holland as the 2 European giants will face off next year. Joining me in the studio now is Solent Sports News Chief Football Correspondent Joe Crabb. Thanks for joining us, Joe. I guess the thing we really need to know is, have we got ourselves out of a hole by getting the Netherlands over Portugal and Switzerland?
Well, I think this is a really interesting matchup. I think Netherlands, they're a bit of a black horse coming into this. Haven't made the past 2 major World Cup tournaments and the Euros, excuse me. So people don't really know who they are, but they've got some really good players. And if you look back, we've just been talking about a Saints manager being sacked. Ronald Koeman, who was a former Saints manager, he was the player who actually, in fact, denied England that qualification in 1993. So there's a bit of a link there as well. So I think it's going to be a really good game. And I'm actually thankful we've got Netherlands. Hopefully we can do one over them and finally get one back for 1993. But
absolutely. And what do you think, A, England's chances are, and B, what we can do to kind of improve over recent World Cup performances?
I'm going to go out there and say on record, I think it's coming home. I think we've got a fantastic squad, lots of young, really, really exciting players. When you look at Jordan Sancho coming into the team, very young, one of the most exciting players in world football at the moment. But I do think we do have some sort of defensive inconsistencies, but that could be coming down to changing all formations and just getting to learn the new roles they have to play. I mean, in the World Cup we played the 3 at the back, but we've now gone back to a 4 at the back. So there's a few things we can work on, but I think Southgate is definitely the man to do it, and I think we're going to have a really good chance of winning the whole thing this year.
Right, so football's coming home. Thanks for joining us, Joe Crabb. Boxing now, and a controversial result in the Deontay Wilder-Tyson Fury fight has got the world talking. Many thought the Englishman outboxed the US fighter in LA on Saturday night, which the judges surprisingly called a draw. Fury climbed off the canvas twice to go the distance, and many observers thought he should have won on points. A lucrative rematch in the new year now looks likely, with heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua waiting to fight the winner.
Weeks away from our families, put the sacrifices in. We both came in great shape, very fit, and it showed. I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as we did, and I'm sure we're going to put a great show on in the second fight.
I'd love to go back into a rematch, or I'd love to fight Joshua. So I think I'm in a win-win situation. You know, I know what the fans want, and I'm with the fans as well too. You know, I'm a warrior, I'm a fighter. This is what I do.
To athletics now, and a Newbury runner who had her eyes on the very top of her sport until a major health setback stopped her in her tracks. Will Fowler has followed her long road to recovery.
As far as childhoods go, it was relatively normal for Sam Van Hastien, but she had no idea she was about to face the biggest hurdle of her life. The runner from Newbury developed bulimia during her school years, an eating disorder that affected her beyond imagination.
I loved any and all sport, but one thing I always did was running, and that was kind of the one that stuck out as something I was particularly good at, I think.
Bulimia is a mental health condition that involves those that suffer with it to make themselves sick and develop other habits that affect the body.
I had to stop competing, I couldn't train regularly, wasn't mentally or physically strong enough to do races, and that was the thing that hurt the most.
Sam's mum, Sue, who is also a keen runner, had an idea of when the signs started to show.
Yeah, I think it was late secondary school, kind of year 10, 11, where I kind of thought that there was something going on. I had a suspicion that she always used to leave meals and to make excuses why she had to go to the loo, so I kind of suspected at that point.
I was terrified of running again just because of the fear of, am I going for a run because I'm feeling guilty that I've had lunch or I've had dinner or I've had a snack or whatever, or is it because I'm actually starting to love running again?
The disorder caused Sam to stop running competitively, but her friends have offered her huge support.
I had my first cheesy chips on a night out, and they made me keep the fork, the light fork that we got and that's pinned on my notice board. And they celebrate things that seem so little, but they celebrated those things with me.
She is still recovering from bulimia, but when it comes to running, she has no intention of slowing up.
I really do want to get back into competitive running, because that's kind of the last thing left for me to take back.
Not only is she helping herself through recovery, she is also helping others to beat the disorder. Will Fowler for Solent Sports News.
Over to the US now, where the NFL may have lost one of its most exhilarating players. The Kansas City Chiefs have cut star running back Kareem Hunt after allegations of abuse. The Chiefs' playmaker has been disgraced after footage was released appearing to show him kicking a woman at the entrance to his Cleveland residence. It's unlikely he'll be signed by another team this season, so the second-year player's career could be over before it's even started. Now, in light of the 2018 Hockey World Cup taking place in Odisha, India, hockey fanatics will be glued to their TV sets. But many sport lovers with lesser knowledge of the game could be a little confused by what they're seeing on the field. So our reporter Gurpreet Singh was down at the Trojans Hockey Club to give us a quick showcase into the game.
We have midfielder Jack Meacher here to go through some of the more common skills and strokes of the game. So Jack, what are we going to start off with today?
We'll start with a little dribble, generally just what most people use. Quite skillful players use it to get round other opponents, and also it's used just to run with the ball when you're trying to make up space quickly. So there's many different types of dribbles you can do in the game.
We're going to go on to
pass, yeah.
Push pass, yeah?
Yeah, the push pass is either you can do quite a very direct pass. It doesn't have to be too far, short distance, as well as a massive push pass. You can cover a whole pitch with it. This can be forehand or the backhand reverse stick as well, which is good to show.
Finally, we're going to go through a very important shot that not many people know about.
Yeah. So rather than having a penalty like you do in football and other sports like that, you have a short corner. If you hit the back, you have to hit the backboard off a hit. But if you use a drag flick, you can hit anywhere in the goal, which allows people to put it top right, top left, which is a very, very tricky skill to do. I've been trying to do it this year and just about got it. But yeah, it's a hard skill to use, but some people get amazing power off it, and that's where a lot of goals come from. And there's been a lot of goals scored in Hockey World Cup with that drag flick.
And that's all for today, but please join us next week for the biggest and best sporting news from the Solent. Lawrence McJanet, Solent Sports News.